Cristobal is back! Baby, I'm back! Hey you! Hey you! Mamacita, look at me! Where have you been all my life? Come here!
In Shaun White Skateboarding, you restore color to a conformist and manufactured world. That makes it pretty ironic that one of the ways you do that is to uncover stride gum billboards in a city filled with Wendy's fast food restaurants. The game's other great irony is that for the second half of its story mode, it isn't really a skateboarding game at all. Instead, it becomes a puzzle platformer in which you spend way too much time figuring out how to get from point A to point B. This shift in philosophy comes at the price of fun. When it focuses on skateboarding, the game is unspectacular but enjoyable. When it veers off path, it's tedious and boring. The Ministry has removed all the color and soul from your beloved city. Even worse, they've taken Shaun White prisoner.
That means that we have to break Shaun out. To break Shaun out. Do not talk over me, that's rude. I hate rudeness, you know that.
I do know that. I'm sorry.
It's up to you to free the minds of the populace and set Shaun loose.
Well, crap. Okay, I gotta go.
The premise is pretty ridiculous, but some of the characters are kooky enough to give it some charm. Well, everyone but Shaun White, who isn't much more than a plot device to give you a reason to skate. The biggest problem with the story is that it doesn't go far enough. It's not realistic enough to make you care, but even though it has a few similarities to Jet Grind Radio, it's not nearly as committed to its own eccentricities as the older game was. Either way, it fails to establish a personality of its own. That middle ground approach permeates all of Shaun White skateboarding. To return color to this muted world, you do tricks to earn flow. Earn enough flow, and you create a wave of color. Ramps burst forth and the brainwashed citizens snap out of their trance. This isn't to say the world becomes vibrant. The color restoration effect is neat for a while, but the colors aren't strong. It's more like you washed a red shirt with your whites than it is like you splashed paint all over the town. Again, the game fails to go all out. The game's other major mechanic is shaping. You can extend green rails and shape them as you skate, allowing you to reach higher areas or other points of interest. Eventually, you can raise platforms upwards and even create rails out of thin air. It's pretty neat in the first half of the game, and it's a good complement to the early skating. The skating isn't as high-flying as earlier Tony Hawk games or as authentic as in the Skate series, but it is fine on its own terms. Some areas have a lot of great opportunities to trick and catch air, like an amusement park in a downtown area. But about halfway through, Shaun White Skateboarding stops being a skating game, and it becomes instead a tedious platformer. Everything simply grinds to a halt. You spend way too much time in dull areas figuring out how to shape rails and platforms to get from one place to another. You end up completing repetitive objectives like destroying cameras and pylons, and the stuff that's fun takes a backseat to the stuff that's boring. That includes a hacking minigame that feels incredibly out of place here. The worst thing that could be said about the first half of Shaun White Skateboarding is that it isn't all that special, but it's still pretty solid. If only it had remained that way. The second half is monotony redefined, as you do a bunch of stuff on skates, but don't really feel like you're playing a skating game anymore. The multiplayer had promise, but there's almost no one playing online, though you can get in some split-screen play if you have a buddy to join you. If you're into the Flying Tomato, you'll be sad that he has the tiniest of bit rolls to play in your adventure. If you like skating games, you'll be sad to know that this is only one half of a skating game. Either way, Shaun White Skateboarding is hardly a bad game, but it's a bland one that spends too little time doing what it does best.
What is wrong with you, baby? Don't you see how sexy I am?